It was a cold autumn morning when Stephen Miles stood before the court, his hands trembling, not from guilt, but from disbelief. The courtroom was thick with tension, and at the center of it all sat Judge Harold Benton, a man whose face was carved with grief and whose eyes burned with something darker than justice. Stephen had been accused of a brutal crime, the murder of a young woman whose body was found near the old riverbank. Every piece of evidence, every fingerprint, every witness seemed to point toward him. But deep inside, Stephen knew something was terribly wrong. He had been here before. 20 years ago, tragedy had struck. Stephen and his best friend, Alex Benton, the judge's only son, had gone out for a night of celebration after graduating college. The laughter, the drinks, the rain, it all blurred together. But what Stephen could never forget was the screech of tires, the crash, and the lifeless silence that followed. Alex had died that night. Stephen had survived. Though the police found no proof of foul play, whispers lingered, and Judge Benton, then just a prosecutor, had never forgiven him. Now, 2 decades later, fate had dealt Stephen the cruelest card of all. The same man who'd lost his son was now presiding over his trial. Despite shaky evidence and a defense riddled with gaps, Judge Benton's voice thundered across the courtroom. For the murder of Emily Ross, I sentence you to life imprisonment. Gasps filled the hall. Stephen's knees buckled. He looked up at the man who had just destroyed his life and whispered, "You're still punishing me for Alex." 4 years behind bars, Stephen's mind replayed that night. The headlights, the crash, the broken glass. But the more he thought, the less it made sense. There was something he couldn't remember. Something buried. Then came a break. An investigative journalist, Clara Voss, drawn by inconsistencies in both cases. Her research uncovered what everyone had missed. The original crash had been tampered with. The steering line on Alex's car had been cut before the accident. It wasn't reckless driving. It was sabotage. And now, the recent murder case? The DNA evidence linking Stephen had been planted by someone inside the court. When Clara presented the findings, the truth hit the justice system like a thunderclap. Judge Benton's old wound had turned into blind vengeance. Subconsciously, or maybe intentionally, he had sought retribution through the gavel. The truth forced its way into the light. The real culprit behind both tragedies was revealed. Alex's jealous former business partner, who had escaped suspicion for decades and resurfaced to frame Stephen when he began asking old questions again. Stephen was exonerated after 20 long years of chains and silence. The day he walked free, the city was silent, ashamed. As for Judge Benton, he was temporarily removed from his seat pending a formal review. When he met Stephen outside the courthouse, the two men stood wordless for a long time. Then, the judge finally whispered, "I let grief blind me. I became the very thing I swore to protect you from." Stephen looked at him, eyes weary but kind. "Justice isn't revenge," he said quietly. "It's truth." And with that, he walked away, free at last, though carrying scars invisible to the world. And though the past still whispered, its echoes were softer now, replaced by peace, truth, and the quiet power of forgiveness. Every story has a heartbeat. Help keep it alive. Hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more gripping stories.